everyone. Welcome to Queer Lodgings, the queer-led podcast about everything Tolkien. I'm Alicia, and I'm here today with the usual suspects, my co-hosts Grace.
Hi.
And Leah.
Hi, guys.
And today we have a very special guest, Adam Brown, who you might remember as the most adorable of the dwarves, Ori from the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies, or perhaps his Sad Moria cameo in The Lord of the Rings. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adam.
Thank you. By the way, the latter I didn't get paid for.
That's horseshit.
Yeah, you deserved residuals from that appearance.
That's some of my best work, I think, in that movie. And I didn't get paid. So,
Terrible.
That's my best skeleton acting there.
Oh my god, the first time that I watched the Lord of the Rings movies after having watched the Hobbit movies and we got to that, I got so sad.
Me too. I was like, oh no, Ori. Oh no.
That's him. Finally his terrible hairdo melted away and it's just his skeleton. Should you feel sorry or relief for him? Who knows?
And thank you to all the lodgers who have joined us today. Settle in around the table, enjoy the music of elven lutes in the background, and it's time to tuck into some green food, whether you like it or not. Today we're discussing Adam's experience working on the Hobbit movies.
Yay!
I'm so excited.
I guess we can kind of plunge right in. I guess what a lot of us would like to know is, what's your relationship with Tolkien look like? How did you encounter Tolkien? When did you first encounter him? Did you have any familiarity with him before you started work?
Really, no. I think I remember, if I go way back to primary school, I remember the book being read to me, The Hobbit, at school. And then obviously The Lord of the Rings came out, and that was a Christmas tradition with my dad. And we went to the cinema and we watched, the Lord of the Rings trilogy as dad and son at Christmas. And so that was incredibly special. And obviously when I told him that I got cast, his mind was completely blown away. So he was so chuffed. But yes, I will hands up confess that when my agent called me and said, got an audition for The Hobbit, my gosh, tell me if I'm going to keep going on and bore you with a story. But essentially, I went up for Bilbo Baggins, as many actors did in the UK, because I don't know if you know, but Martin Freeman wasn't being released from his Sherlock contract.
Right.
It was always going to be Martin. And anyway, they were looking for a British actor under the height of 5'7". And I fitted into that territory. And I went up for the audition, and it was my first movie audition. And
that's so cool. Wow.
And I had a lovely time with the casting director, and I was incredibly nervous, as you can imagine. And he said, well, that was a great audition, Adam. You'll hear pretty soon from Peter and Fran and Philippa. They watched the tapes pretty soon, but thank you very much. And then, like the day after, my agent rang me and went, okay, so you're not Bilbo Baggins.
Damn it.
I think it would be a very different film if I was. But they were thinking of a dwarf for you. And this is how much I didn't know the world of Tolkien. I was like, does that mean like villager number 1 or villager number 2? Like, how big is that? And then I completely forgot about it. And I think 7 weeks later, I got a phone call from the agent saying, yes, well, you're going to be Ori the dwarf. They don't want to change you at all. That nervous energy is everything that they want. You fly to New Zealand in 2 months' time, pack up your belongings, and off you go. So, yeah, it was wonderful. And when I got there, they were just so great, and the wonderful things that I remember being told by Peter and Fran to people like the dialect coach and sort of the acting people that was there to support us was, don't change Adam, don't change him. We want Ori exactly like that. So for me, Ori was me. He was written for me, and it was just so wonderful that I came as that nervous guy in the audition, and I tackled trolls, orcs, and goblins as that very timid guy as well. So yeah, that's my story.
It's so wonderful to hear. Like, whenever I guess the way that you put it, nervous energy really like got to me because I was sort of like, if I was a dwarf, that's the one I would be. I would be the one with the soft knits and
Yeah.
lots of enthusiasm, but also kind of like I really don't know what I'm doing here.
I know, exactly. It was like that. And then I remember being in New Zealand and sitting around the table in Weta Workshop with all of the boys, and the drawings came out of what we were going to look like, and these were our weapons. And obviously, it was just such an incredible experience. But when it got to the weapons, it was actually Richard Armitage that sort of made a joke and said, he should have a slingshot. And that's how I got my slingshot,
You got the slingshot.
because Rich said he can't wield an axe, that guy. So yeah, that's how I got my slingshot.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's so
I
cute.
also I love Ori's costume. I love how like knit heavy it is, and it just looks so cozy.
It was heavy. It was heavy.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. I pictured Dory having knit that for you.
Oh yes, he probably did.
Oh, bless.
Oh,
Bless Mark Hadlow.
yeah, I can't imagine how much that knit weighed on top of like the suit you're already having to like wear. I've been to a couple of interviews with people who play dwarves at like Dragon Con and stuff, and like I've heard all about the dwarf milk and all of that. So I can only I can only imagine like how heavy and hot all of that was.
We were hot. We were a hot, sweaty bunch of actors that moaned a lot, as you can imagine.
Oh wait. If you haven't heard about the dwarf milk, because I just realized I should probably explain that if a listener.
Should we?
Although it is funnier to leave it unexplained.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's the nasty stuff in the prosthetics afterwards.
Yeah, it's basically like a powder that you can put on your hands to make the prosthetic hands go on really easily. But after you've had a day shooting in those, when you took that off, it was like a clear, liquidy goo that came out afterwards. So yeah, not pleasant, not pleasant.
Oh, thank God you referred to it as dwarf milk instead of something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Oh wow, I'd like to see that film.
That's the porno parody, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh no.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So like you said you had a little bit of familiarity from when you were a kid, perhaps having had The Hobbit read to you. Did you go back and read it to like prep for the role?
I did. I read The Hobbit, and then I tackled Lord of the Rings again. I watched a lot of the backstage stuff with the boys from Lord of the Rings and the world of that, and I couldn't quite believe that I was going to step into that world. So yeah, I did a little bit of research, and generally got very excited.
Oh, but did you go through and then read the Silmarillion?
Hell no.
No, I don't blame you.
That's the right answer.
Well,
Totally valid.
I mean that is a mission in itself. But well done, people that have read that.
It took producer Tim 7 years to read the Silmarillion.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like, once you had gone through and you'd read The Hobbit, knowing that you were going to be in this role and everything, then as you were getting scripts or anything, was there anything that you were like surprised or really excited about that you were going to get to do in the scripts or in the film that hadn't necessarily been as like carefully spelled out in the book or anything? Was there anything that like any of the like the visual expansion or anything that you were like, oh, this is going to be fun to play with?
Oh, so many things. I mean, we got the scripts very late, essentially they were still writing them as we got there. I know the first film was very much written, but the second one wasn't. And of course, that changed again halfway through when two films became three.
Right.
But yes, I just absolutely loved the detail that they went into in terms of what was a paragraph in one, book turned into lots and lots of magical scenes. I mean, the barrel ride in itself was probably the most fun I've ever had, period. It was so good. An extension of, just the world that they've created and the imagination that they have as you as an actor going into that world. I mean, it only helps your performance. You're going, crikey. It's so strange. It's so strange. New Zealand is, when I got there, it was like the sets were so, so, so real. They were so real. It's unbelievable. And then the scenery, the scenery in New Zealand is so incredible. It's almost fake. Like you didn't know which was which. You go, is this real? Is this fake? I'm not sure. It was just, it was great.
Yeah, I just went to New Zealand last December, and the thing that really stood out to me was how fake all the colors look. Like when you look at the Peter Jackson movies and how like blue the sky is and how green the grass is, you just assume it's color grading, but no, that's just what New Zealand actually looks like.
Yeah, that's New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing that I really kind of appreciated a lot seeing The Hobbit translated visually was honestly like how much character was actually given to each of the dwarves. Like in the book, they're kind of just like a weird sort of like unit. They're all sort of faceless and together basically, just like as Thorin and his pals basically. And so I loved being able to kind of see that individuality come out with each of the dwarves and give each of them like these characteristics that make them really memorable. And again, going back to seeing what happens in Moria, you're kind of like, oh gosh, yeah, that was Balin, that was Ori. These are these guys that we actually know now. They're not like just kind of a villager or dwarf number one anymore, really.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we all really, really. I think Peter Jackson wanted each child out there to have their favorite dwarf that they would play with, and it would be my favorite is the hot dwarf. my well, my favorite is the fat one. My
Right,
favorite's the timid one. I think
right.
it was that child to open up that toy box and have their favorite, and I think there is one. There is a dwarf for everybody, really, isn't there?
Aw, yeah. Yeah, there sure is. Well, kind of stepping back a little bit from The Hobbit, I would kind of love to know, like, were you reading any sorts of like genre or like fantasy and stuff like that when you were younger? Like, what kind of things were you watching or reading? And like, did any of them have like an impact on your decision to go into performing and into acting?
That's a good question. I definitely wasn't a reader, and I still am not a reader, really. But in terms of watching things, I think my love of entertainment came from British comedy, whether that be the Two Ronnies. You probably don't know any of these people. Two Ronnies, it would be Dad's Army, it would be Jennifer Saunders, and it would be the Ab Fabs. It would be this kind of world that I was just absolutely adored and obsessed with. So I think that was my go-to for what I'd be watching. That and 80s rom-coms.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
anything with Goldie Hawn.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know that kind of real screwball 80s comedies that you just don't see anymore? I had a lovely conversation with somebody in the pub the other week, and I I was saying Goldie Hawn is my favourite actress. There has never been, and I still don't think that they've tried to make. I don't think there has been. Possibly they tried to do it with Cameron Diaz, but no one is absolutely stunning and beautiful and pin-up, but with proper comedy chops. Like she
Goldie
was
Hawn.
and is just. So I can stand up strong and say Goldie Hawn is my favorite actress.
Aw,
I
that's
love that.
So,
wonderful.
yeah. So yeah, yeah.
I kind of feel like in terms of like, I guess I feel like maybe Sandra Bullock is somebody who kind of comes to mind with
Yeah,
similar
similar,
vibes.
similar. Very
Yeah,
beautiful, very funny. Yeah,
yeah,
but even Sandra's no Goldie Hawn.
it's
There you
true.
go.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sandra.
So I'm gonna, yeah.
Sorry.
So basically, comedy was my route into theatre, and yeah, the world of showbiz. It's just everything for me. It needs a played with humanity, but a real kind of comedy touch to it. Whether you're, I mean, that's my bag. Yeah, that's my world. I think just something that can make people laugh. I think
Yeah, yeah.
probably because I was never going to be the hunk. I, I found, I found a way of just finding, a bit of a show off as being a bit of a comedian at school and things like that. So yeah, that's how I got into the world of it, really.
Were you a class clown?
Yes, there was not really a group for me. I wasn't in the cool group and I wasn't in the not cool group. But yeah, I found my way of being accepted and loved and liked was being a show off. Look at me. I'm an idiot. And I'm
I
still
think,
doing that today. I'm still doing. It's the same old stuff I'm doing that I did at school.
but getting paid for it now. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I think we underestimate like how when someone makes us smile, when someone makes us laugh, when someone makes us feel like genuinely connect with emotion and get to express it, we forget how attractive we as human beings find that.
Mm,
And it's very funny for me now. I have like a friend that I went to elementary school with who is fairly well known in the comedy world now. And it is just fascinating to have like the internet just thirsting over someone that I went to school with, and that like we were the weird kids, and like nobody thought like, oh well, yeah, they're going to be the hunk or whatever. And then by the time like you get to it and you get to reach all these people are like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so
yeah.
I imagine that a little bit of that has happened for you as well. As people are like, oh, and he was like the really cute, adorable little like, hey.
Yeah. I mean, I think but going back to my hometown, I don't know. I'm the guy from The Hobbit. Like before, if The Hobbit didn't come along, I'd just be still that idiot from school. So yeah, I'm still doing the same old thing. Yeah.
kind of getting back into more growing up and stuff. What was your understanding of like the wider queer community like when you were growing up? What was your journey around sort of discovering the queer community and kind of understanding yourself a bit more like?
Yeah, I would say a slow process. I would imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it was a slow process. I mean, I came out very late, and it was it was obviously I am 44. Crikey, I'm 44, and was such a different time, such a different time back then, and I do envy the world that we're in today, and think of myself back in that time. Yeah, Goldie Hawn was my gay icon, I guess. uh,
100%.
yeah, so I think it was a very different time, and yeah, that's not very clear, is it? Yeah, but
Well, I'm 37. I'm like straight down the middle of the road millennial, and I also came out to myself very late as far as these things go, partly because of I think we were growing up in the 90s where gay and trans folks were the butt of jokes on like Seinfeld and Friends over here,
yes, yes, yes,
but also Ellen DeGeneres came out on primetime television. And so it was kind of a weird, nebulous sort of thing. And I didn't have a very clear understanding of the queer community or gay people existing until quite late. And so yeah, it's just sort of like hearing about you saying that it's kind of like a slow process, and also that envy, I think, of the younger generation. Like I often think about like if I were growing up right now, like just how different it would be for me and for the folks hosting this podcast, I think. and how very different it would be for a lot of us growing up, because we saw the change basically as we were growing up, and a lot of people get to enjoy it now.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Also, like, I'm 40 and I'm still figuring stuff out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it didn't have the words for it, back in the
Yeah.
day. And now we do have words for it. And
Yes.
it's,
Yes.
I am
Yeah.
also in that mildly envious boat. I'm also very happy for them, but like, my God, how much easier must it be now?
Yeah.
In some ways.
In some
The
ways,
work is not done,
Yeah.
but yeah.
the work is definitely not done in terms of. I mean, we get to a point, don't we? And the world is even bigger now, even bigger, and things are possible now, which I think should be embraced. And I mean, you cannot, as a child growing up in the 90s, you can't really be if you haven't seen it. If it's not around you, you can't be it. And I think it's incredibly important. You made a point just earlier about being the butt of a joke. I mean, the British comedy is classic for that, where
Mhm.
and it is so British, where you'd have the unspoken gay man just being the butt of the joke, or come in with the one liner, and then their story would never have an arc. You would never know what they do. They would just come on and go, ooh, and then walk off again. And of course, it would bring the house down, and we would all laugh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as a child, I didn't know what I was laughing at. I mean, I embrace that world. I just think it's so British and it's so wonderful. But I spoke to my very best friend, and her daughter is obsessed with the show Heartstoppers,
Oh,
Right.
yes.
Hmm.
and I watched the first season, and I actually got incredibly emotional watching it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's not my kind of show, but I was like, wow, this is around, and my 14-year-old goddaughter is watching this, and it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful that a show like that exists, and at the market of a 14. I mean, it's incredibly popular that you don't have to, but for the market that it's targeted at, I just think, how amazing is that show? How amazing is that show, and how would my life have been different if things like that were on television? And they weren't on television. No, I remember the big gay kiss on the local on the soap opera here. That
Mm,
Yeah.
happened very very late at night on an episode that started at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I would creep downstairs, and I would watch through the banister as my mum and dad were watching it, going, "This is amazing," but also it feels really naughty because
Yeah.
it was
mhm,
marketed as naughty. And
mhm.
I think, to be in a world where shows like that and the generation can watch that, just how bloody brilliant that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, there is something about British comedy that maybe you tell me a little bit more about things have changed, but A Man in a Dress is always a great comedy sort of delivery system or a
Yeah,
punchline in a lot of British comedy. And that's something that I, even like revisiting things like Monty Python or, some of the other things that have come across the pond here that I've had a lot more awareness of as I've gotten older, where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, so that's the joke. I see. I see. So,
yeah. And it's incredibly hard to. I mean, it's a debate, isn't it? And a real. If you really dig deep at that, there's so much to talk about. But
yeah,
yeah, there's a tradition which I write and direct pantomimes,
right.
Mhm.
English pantomimes. I was with Ian McKellen last year in the West End.
Yes, yes.
I played the King of Gooseland, and he played Mother Goose,
Oh
who
my gosh.
His
Yeah.
Mother
who
Goose was incredible.
who was a dame,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and I remember him coming to me because he knows that I love that genre and I write genres, and said, I want to play the dame. but yes, it's a very hard one for non-Brits to understand.
It can be a little bit, but I'm glad that you were bringing that up because I was hoping that you would talk a little bit more about panto because I'm sort of fascinated by it as a non-Brit. It feels very medieval in a way that is really appealing to me. And I mean medieval in terms of like it's been around forever. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yes, yeah, yeah. Well, I absolutely adore the art form.
Awesome.
There is so much snob. This is why it was so amazing that Ian did it. There's so much snobbery in the UK about the art form. It's like the lowest low of art forms. Happens
Yes.
every Christmas in every theatre up and down the country, and that
Mhm.
one show will change a child's life forever. And it was certainly the same sort of thing for me. The local. You know, my parents weren't theatre goers, but that we would go and see the local pantomime every year. I would sit down and watch it, and I would see a man in a dress, and I would laugh at this man in a dress. And it was not just about the manager, it's the world of pantomime where anything is possible. And it's such a hearty British, it stems from music hall, old fashioned music hall.
Yeah.
Right.
It even goes back further than that
Right.
to like commedia dell'arte. But essentially, it's an art form that is still with us because it's so robust, and you can chuck
Mm.
anything at it, and it knows when it's wrong as well, and changes. It changes as well, and the
Yeah.
cross gender stuff is done with pure joy,
Mm.
and there's no malice to it.
Mm.
And yeah, no, I'm a big fan, and it was just absolute a pleasure to do it with Ian. It was a long show. We toured for we opened in November in my hometown, and then we went to the West End, and we toured until April. So yeah, it was a long
Oh
Oh,
journey.
wow.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pantomime is usually a Christmas tradition.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were doing panto at Easter, which felt very strange.
I was gonna say very surreal.
I
Yeah.
love
That's
that though
fun.
too. It's also just such a fun in the art form because the audience has a role in it.
Hmm.
Mm.
Like there's so much audience feedback and interaction and tradition of like we boo and we hiss and we cheer and all of that. And it's a very different culture from a lot of theater here in the States where it's very, very demure. You sit, you clap, you like that's it. And I remember with great joy going to see a Robin Hood pantomime when I was studying in London, and just it's such fun, and it's something that I really appreciate about British theater in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it will survive anywhere else. I think they do try and do the odd one in America. I think there's a few companies that do it in Australia, but it's so it's so British. It's unbelievable. Not sure it will travel across the pond, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a staple of every child's. You pretty much go on a school trip if not.
Mhm.
It's like your end of year treat at school.
Mm,
But
mhm.
there's no explanation to a child to say boo and hiss at these points because they know exactly what to do at exactly the right time. And like you say, you're exactly right. They are the biggest character. The audience are the biggest character in the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I actually sent a picture of me and Ian to Peter Jackson in
Aw.
our panto costumes,
Oh, great.
and it's quite an outrageous costume we both have. Mine in particular, and he replied, going, "Wonderful to hear from you. I'd love to see what you look like in the costumes," referring to that like it was like our normal wear that we're just this is just a picture out in the pub.
Yeah, we're just hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love that.
Well, actually talking about Peter Jackson and everything, going back to The Hobbit a minute, what are some favorite memories that you have from filming those films?
honestly, everything was just if I could pocket a part of my life that was just untouchable was those times in New Zealand. It was amazing, and every day I used to pinch myself, and that's no word of a lie. I think I got quite down one day with my makeup artist saying I'm not having a very good time today. I don't know, I'm just really working myself up. there's me in my house by the sea with my personal trainer, my masseuse, and I was, and I'm moaning or having a bad day, and they're like, "Adam, it's okay to have a bad day. You're okay. You are human." I was like, "Yeah, but look, I mean, this is heaven. It's amazing." And working with giants in the acting industry, working with such talented people. When I watched the Lord of the Rings backstage stuff, I honestly was a bit cynical. I thought, well, this is all bullshit. That they can't be one big happy family, but we really were. And I've never done a job, and I don't think I ever will do a job like it, where we are still in contact. Not all the time,
Mm.
but they're real friends. They are real friends, those people. And yeah, if we were in a room together, it would be just exactly the same. So
That
yeah,
makes me so happy.
that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Well, I think it's the right answer, and I think that's what Peter Jackson wanted. And I think it shows in the movies. I think it shows. It does feel like one. There was no hierarchy. Of course, some people are getting paid a lot more money than other people, and
Yeah.
but some but some, like, our trailers were the same size. We all everything was similar. Now then I did a job for another job where I realized, oh, it's not like it was in New Zealand. I've got a small trailer because I'm not important, and you've got a massive trailer because you're much more important. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like that. They have the right. It's the right way of working out there. It was a joy. I honestly had the best time of my life there.
That makes me so happy to hear the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. They're like my happy place. They're like if I was Peter Pan, that they would be my happy thoughts to make me fly. Like going there is kind of like my comfort place. And so like
Oh,
whenever I'm
lovely.
having a really horrible time, I'm like pop in those Blu-rays and just watch behind the scenes footage of you guys because I'm just like it looks like you're all having a blast and I'm so pleased to hear that you guys really felt like family and really felt that closeness.
Yeah, we did. We really did.
That actually brings me to a question that I wanted to ask about, like, behind the scenes and everything, which is that and I'm maybe making presumptions here, but it seems like that was a really supportive environment. And how does working in a supportive and, like, queer-friendly environment behind the camera affect the work overall, affect the I guess even, like, the way that the audience might even receive any of that?
I think it's tremendously important. I think for any actor, or whether you're actor or crew, any creative on the team, to be themselves, and in order to fail in front of each other, and it would be okay.
Mm, mm,
If we're masking all the time, whether that be your sexuality or whatever it is, that's just another barrier where we're not in a trusting place where we can fail in front of each other. And I think if you're filming, you've got to, in a sense, you've got to be vulnerable in order to do your best work. Does that make sense?
Yes,
mhm.
Yeah.
yeah. Excuse me, the kitten has deleted the question I was going to ask.
Jesus.
The animals are destroying everything today.
I've never been upstaged by a cat before.
Well, now you're famous for that, okay?
Great.
Yeah, I have a question just kind of surrounding like the fan reaction to like having so many queer people in a Tolkien property because when Ian McKellen was cast as Gandalf, there was a bunch of pushback about having Gandalf be played by a gay man. Very famously, there's a post on his blog about it that we end up having to trot out a bunch when people tell us that that wasn't a thing that happened. And we're like, oh, no, no, it did happen. Here is a blog from the early 2000s that proves you
Right.
wrong. And now with Rings of Power and them casting a bunch of like, POC as characters, and there's a bunch of pushback about that. Was there pushback about having queer people involved in the Hobbit movies that you were
Ooh.
aware of? Because if there was, it slipped straight by me.
From fans.
Yeah, media fans, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I was a bit naive and I didn't really investigate that. I was too busy being incredibly nervous. But and it was I think it was very different as well. No, I didn't. I don't. Yeah, maybe I didn't investigate that as much as I probably should have. But yeah, I know that there was. I know Ian, for example, did say that his time on The Hobbit felt more enjoyable because there were far more gay actors on that film than there were on Lord of the Rings, and it was nice to work with fellow like-minded people.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that interview he gave because it kind of accidentally outed a couple of people.
Oops.
Right. That'd be Ian for you.
Oops.
love him.
Yeah, I didn't notice any real pushback about that because when I was paying attention, most of what I saw was this frantic, oh my God, who else on this production was gay? It wasn't, oh my God, there are gay people on this production. It really does seem to have been, it's almost as if The Hobbit was made in this like little golden era where people just didn't care as much about like queer people
Or we're
being like
genuinely
in
excited.
things. Yeah.
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 Or we were all like, "Oh my god, like you're all here and you're all like my family," you know? It's like,
And I
Yeah,
think
"Oh
love.
yeah, great."
it's been a joy for a lot of Lord of the Rings Tolkien fans as various folks have like come out more and more publicly who've been involved with the films. Like I think that's for a lot of us been a source of absolute joy. And so I hope that joy resonates back to the folks as you're going through that journey. But
That's great. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Oh, we have a question kind of obliquely coming in from producer Tim. So Tim and I got to tour Weta and meet Richard Taylor, which was an incredible experience for us as like huge Tolkien nerds. We got the feeling that Weta in general is a pretty queer friendly place. Like, did you get that sort of feeling like working with them like as an actor?
100%. Like, there was no question. I think on the first meeting in Peter's house, I think Fran came up to me and sort of we were just chatting and said, "Oh, how's your love life? Are you having a partner coming to visit while you're out here?" And my story was open straight away, and it didn't affect a thing. Nobody affected a thing. Ian came up to me and was really excited. I think he obviously knew that I was gay, and it was like, we became great friends. It just became wasn't even an issue. It was such a really safe place for everybody. I think New Zealand is, of all the countries in the world, it's probably the most forward-thinking country, even if it is right down the bottom of the world.
I
Uh,
tend to agree.
yeah.
They are. Yeah, it is very. You can be who you are there.
Well, speaking of New Zealand, are there any like favorite haunts you had while you were there, like offset?
There's a lot of delicious restaurants and coffee shops. I may even have dragged Ian to the local gay bar there,
Oh.
Aw.
and we had a little. I can't even remember what it was called. Was it called the Pound? I think it was the Pound. I can't remember.
Name
That's
for a gay
excellent.
bar.
What was it called? Oh my gosh, that's going to really bug me. I'm going to have to phone up one of my New Zealand friends and find out.
If it's not called the Pound, my God, someone please open that bar.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Business idea.
What if it's not? That is a great name, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, we had a lot of lovely places to visit in lovely old Wellington.
Wellington's beautiful too. It's such a like artsy city. The couple of days we stayed there was definitely like more of an artsy kind of like an art colony as opposed to like Auckland, because Auckland was very like businessman, wear your suit, go downtown, work in a skyscraper, and like Wellington just struck me as like a college town.
Yeah, it's very arty, very bohemian, and very windy. Very windy.
Yeah.
Windy Welly.
I love that.
Yeah. No crazy nights where anyone peed in a fountain or anything?
There probably were, but maybe it was me. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe that's in the NDA you had to sign or something.
Yeah, there would be a few of those, and take you back upstairs.
Yeah, we 100% had a stop at the fountain that Elijah Wood peed in one day on our trip around Wellington.
I know the fountain you're on about as well. Is it the one with the buckets?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most lamest fountain ever. I can't even call it a fountain.
It deserved to be peeing.
Yeah, maybe that's why he pissed in it.
It deserved it.
Oh my god. He's been to Dragon Con now twice. Why have I not asked him about this fountain he pissed in? He would probably be like, why do you even know about that? You people are weird.
Super weird.
I mean, we are, but you know.
Yeah.
Adam, you've been to several cons. Is that right? Do you get around to a lot of these comic conventions and fan conventions?
I do. I used to do a lot more before COVID.
Before times, yeah.
Yes, before those times. Yeah, I did a lot of, and I really loved the way I can travel and visit people, and also, exactly the same as doing this. Sort of, it reminds me of the time I had in New Zealand, and to keep talking about it, and to have people interested in what a special time it was, is really, really, really nice. So yeah, I do them. I don't do a lot of them, but I do them.
Oh my god, please come to Dragon Con.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, Graham's been. I met Graham. We were judging a costume contest that he was emceeing. Yeah, and Dean's come as well. That's where we learned about dwarf milk. I'm always like, please, more Middle Earth guests.
I do have a question. So my background comes more from theater than doing film or anything like that. But over the course of a production, as you're inhabiting characters and all of that, there a lot of times there sort of like inside jokes that you start to develop, or that sort of in fandom you call them like headcanons or whatever, ideas about characters and connections that they have that maybe aren't in the script or whatever. And I'm curious if there were any sort of like inside jokes like with the various cast members for The Hobbit and things that you would like seed in as little details that you guys knew about, but that like the audience might not have automatically known.
So you mean like actually that were caught on camera that are there that we know that there are jokes?
Either that
Is
were
that
caught
what you
on
mean?
camera or that you were trying to get caught on camera and that just wasn't the cut.
Yeah. No, I mean there were a lot of inside jokes. Yeah, we had a lot of time sitting around talking. There's nothing I don't know about those boys, honestly. even their inside leg measurements, I know everything. But I think we were professional enough not to have it put on screen. But yeah, no, there were many, many, many jokes that we had, and names for each other, and yeah, lots.
Were there any things for your characters that, sort of that you were using to flesh out and, I don't know, what a character like particularly likes biscuits or something. I don't know. Like just something that you guys were using to make everything feel extra real and lived in. And
I think in terms of the world around us, I mean, a lot of it was done for you with the incredible sets. You know, I too come from theatre where your imagination has to do so much to make, a play in a black box. When you're in a black box and you're doing a play and you're walking along a mountain edge, your brain is doing all the work, and you're telling the story through your imagination. But really, all that was done for you. We had that mountain. If not, it would be made the next day for you. We had Yeah, we had all the costume and those dwarf costumes, as you can imagine. You put that on, you felt 100% like Ori. There was no getting away from it. We did 6 weeks boot camp training where we learned to walk like a dwarf,
Mm.
and we learned to sing, we learned to horse ride, weapon training, which was all brilliant, but almost not needed because you put those boots on, you put that costume on, you're not running anywhere. You are walking like you've got a big Arctic truck on your back. So
Kind of
yeah, no,
waddling everywhere. Yeah.
it was done for most of that sort of imagination and extra flurrying bits were done for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had forgotten about the singing boot camp that I've seen about it in the behind the scenes stuff. The Misty Mountains song is so iconic. It's so
Yeah,
Mm.
good.
It's a banger. It's a banger.
it is. It is good.
Well, I would love to know, thinking about some of these characters, we would love to know, do you have any favorite queer Middle Earth ships? Are you a shipper at all?
Um, on that we have obviously we've got a few WhatsApp groups, and they often one of the actors will surprise me with one of those images.
Oh, good.
There was a time when Ori and Dwalin were very close, I think.
That's
Mm-hmm.
that's quite popular on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Is it? Wow,
Yes.
wow. I'm not sure what Graham would think of that, but yeah,
Not sure either.
there's
Fan
certainly.
etiquette is not to bring all of the headcanons to the actors unless such is solicited. There's no rule about you guys not sending it to each other on WhatsApp.
I know. Someone takes a screenshot of something and suddenly, what is that? I particularly like the ones where Ori is sat with his quill and his notebook, probably half dressed, whilst watching Philly and Killy do their thing.
Wow. Wow.
That's fantastic.
I think
Oh.
that's my favourite. There we go.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
that's great.
Ori the voyeur.
Yes, just silently in the corner with his quill.
With his quill.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Yeah. I am the resident bag and shield flag waver over here, and that's primarily because of the Hobbit films. It's a ship that came out of those films for sure.
Oh, 100%. It's a
Yeah.
film ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely quite a few on Tumblr centered around many of the dwarves, and
Yeah.
it makes me very happy to know that you guys have probably seen some of them.
Yeah, I'm sure we have.
Good to have a little bit of a laugh. Yeah.
I'm sure we have. For me, I think it's wonderful. I think it's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah, it's one of those like neat things about like you being a queer like consumer of media, right? Because like you are looking for such subtle things to fit yourself in, and like that chemistry between Richard and Martin is palpable.
Yeah.
And it is definitely something that people pick up on. Yeah, I was previously unaware of Ori as a voyeur. That's an interesting one I'm going to look into now.
Yeah. I'm into it. I'm into it.
Yeah. So, not necessarily related to shipping or anything, but what are your thoughts about queer representation in Tolkien adaptations and then also just media in general? Like, how important is it? How important is holding that space?
Incredibly important. We discussed, my 15, 14-year-old self watching programs and worlds where I would be up there, be seen as a version of me. So I think it's incredibly important within the Tolkien world. Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, everyone needs to be represented in some way, and not in a token way, but with real arcs and real stories and real worlds. I think Tolkien is, what does Tolkien do best? It's loyalty, friendship, love, honor, all those things that are incredibly important and, universal, whoever you are. So I think it,
Yeah.
people should be presented in that space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's incredibly important, and I think working on The Hobbit, I think having, probably not intentionally at all, but having a quite queer friendly cast was great in terms of working on it, and as you suggested, for an audience to be aware that was the case. I remember back in, this is probably not even common knowledge. There we go. I'm going to give you a little insight now. Is that, so it would be in 2013, the Desolation of Smaug premiere was due to happen in Russia,
Oh,
and it was all set up by Warner Brothers. And I was very lucky, being such a minor role, not within these great actors, that to be included and my voice be heard on an email that was sent to Peter and Fran and the producers, in the notion that Warner Brothers would listen, would be a voice of a select few actors saying how uncomfortable and inappropriate it was. It was, well, essentially the same as Section 28, where it would be illegal to promote um, promote your queerness in a. And I think the email suggested that if this premiere was going to happen, then it would be shy, lots of cast members, myself included, not turning up as a principal. And to their credit, Warner Brothers and Peter and Fran, headed by Peter and Fran, I must say, and Philippa, changed that. And the Desolation of Smaug did not have their premiere in Russia.
wow.
And it was in New York instead. Yeah.
Big
So
change.
big change
That's
for
huge.
to take on a giant like that. And I think in fact, before I got on to this call today, I refreshed myself and looked at the email, and it would do nothing for the box office to have the premiere there. Nothing to do. The box office. Sadly, it may do a disservice to some of the fans out there, but what it said to the whole queer community was priceless. Because if we'd have gone there and I would not be able to be on the red carpet and say I am a gay man, because that would initially be an illegal act.
Right.
I think it was incredibly important for us as a group of actors on that movie to take a stance like that.
Wow.
So there.
Yeah, that kind of brings me getting slightly further afield, but a year later, Russia annexed part of the Ukraine. So it's sort of like having the premiere there, like how, I don't know, it just kind of makes me think about some of the further political implications sort of stemming from that and thinking about like what's going on today. And
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
As a fan, as a queer fan, it makes a tremendous difference to me to know both that that email was sent, that that message was sent, and that it was listened to. But I think even more than it being listened to, the fact that you all stood on principle and stood in truth and said that this is important, like that resonates, that makes a difference going
Yeah.
forward and going into the future. And thank
Yeah.
you for doing that.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I mean, we've all, as actors, we probably have all worked in countries where we don't support something that country supports or is illegal or something. But to be unable to be your authentic self,
Yeah.
because at a red carpet event
Right.
or at a premiere, that's not who we are as performers and actors. So that was the change. And I remember that email. I felt very, very honored to be included into those group of people that sent that, and to have my little voice bearing in mind this is my first movie heard by bigwigs of a
100%.
studio. So yeah, that was a moment, I think, that we were heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so brave to do that on like your first movie acting gig as well. Just be
100%.
like, nah, man, fuck that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just queer actors. It was,
Yeah.
very much people supporting queer actors. So yeah.
I can't even imagine like being an executive and knowing that you have queer people working on this property and being like, yeah, let's go to Russia. Like that's a safety issue. What a strange choice to have made. I'm so glad that they backed out.
Yes. The choices of executives.
Indeed.
Another podcast, perhaps. No.
Last couple of questions here. We just wanted to talk about the future with you. What types of projects do you like working on, or what do you look for in a script as you're looking at projects these days?
I'm getting more into writing and directing at the moment. So
Wonderful.
I'm directing a play in 2 weeks' time. So that's been my go-to. I am very, very lucky to know that I have had a varied career and hopefully continue. Last year I was in like I said, pantomime with Ian. Then I followed it up with performing in an opera,
Wow.
with the English National Opera. Then I'm directing a show. So I just want to keep it going. I don't want to
Ah.
get bored. So yeah.
What show are you directing soon?
I am directing a pantomime.
Yay.
So Dick Whittington is one of the pantos I am directing, and I've written one called Sleeping Beauty for another theatre. So yeah,
Fantastic.
Christmas is a bit my busy time, really.
Right.
It's my panto empire is taking over.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's great. That's honestly that's so much joy. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that opens in a couple of weeks.
Start rehearsal in a couple of weeks, and then
Okay, great.
it'll be for December. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, do you have any last words that you'd like, if you want to tell folks about where to find you this Christmas and anything that you want to promote?
Just keep a lookout for all my socials, and I will I'll post what I have to do there.
Can you tell us what your socials are?
They are what are they? Brown ads. Brown ads. There you go.
Awesome.
Brown ADS. There we are.
And that's on all the things on
Except the one with the shipping stuff.
okay.
It's not. I don't do that one.
So not Tumblr.
Yeah.
Completely fair.
You might want someone to go and grab that one to make sure no one can grab it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just lock that down, maybe.
Yeah. I'm off to make my account now.
Well, yeah, thank you.
And guys, thank you for having me on here, and thank you for a wonderful podcast.
Oh, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
This has been a joy.
Yeah, this was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, Adam.
Pleasure. Take care, guys.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. It was such a great conversation.
Yes.
It's the usual time. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, basically anywhere that one gets a podcast from. You can also stream our episodes directly on Zencaster. That's zencaster.com/Queer Lodgings, a Tolkien podcast with the hyphens in between all of those words. Where possible, please leave us a rating and like, share, and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook at Queer Lodgings, at Twitter at queer_lodgings. We're also on Blue Sky as Queer Lodgings. And if you have any feedback or episode ideas, you can send us an email at queerlodgingspodcast@gmail.com and visit our website, queerlodgings.com.
We have transcripts and we have merch and we have links to lots of resources. Alicia's done a ton of work on the website, so please check it out. It's very cool.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Guys, you're back now.
Oh,
Are you
oh
back
yeah.
now?
Yes.
You can hear us?
It went funny. If this continues, I'll move downstairs next to our router.
Just like sit on
uh,
top of the router.
I
Yeah.
will. That's how dedicated I am for you. I will mount the router.
Thanks. Wow.
If that
Wow.
if that helps.